You weren't asleep. You were fucking snoring. That's not true. I don't snore. I never snore. Really? Well, it took me 5 minutes to pull the curtains out of your mouth. It sounded like somebody throwing bananas into the Hadron Collider. 2 rhinos fucking in a giant vat of crisps.
Right, let's talk about words. Language is the foundation of comedy, but few comedians use the full breadth of their vocabulary. The sound, context, and rhythm of a word totally changes the impact of a joke. So today we'll be focusing on how comedians can push their material into more written territory without sounding like a pretentious knob.
You know, some words are just funny. Cocoon. For the clune. Get out of your cocoon, you little clune.
A great place to start is by focusing on how words sound rather than their literal meaning. Every word has a flavor and a texture. Some words are sharp and angular, others soft and playful.
Warren. That's a weird name.
Warren.
My name is Warren.
You know what?
It's easy to load, doesn't have a lot of working parts, got a good spread. He kept saying that. He's got a good spread.
Yogurt. It sounds like it's coming up again.
How a word sounds plays a huge role in getting the audience to laugh, which leads us to one of the great deliverers of words before becoming one of the great gibberish-talking mumblers, Rowan Atkinson. Bean aside, Atkinson is most known for his exaggerated delivery, which ironically is rooted in a speech impediment over the letter B. Atkinson turned potential weakness into massive comedic strength. His early performances are renowned for his over-articulation of words and sounds.
Sediment. Soda. Ta. Under manager. Sob.
Atkinson is one of few people who could actually read you the phone book and make it funny. His ability to turn language into sound, to stretch and exaggerate his syllables, to find the silliness in words we've heard a million times before is something to keep in mind.
Yes, Bob, Brian, barbibutanol, tamoxifen,
Think I've got it?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Gary Gulman seems to be carrying this torch in Atkinson's stead. Gulman's delivery is meticulous, acutely aware of how to present a word to get the audience to laugh. In his early specials, he made a mockery of milk.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that would go good with a cookie. Milk, you say? Am I pronouncing it correctly? Is it milka? Is it a silent K? I just want to make an ass out of myself when I order it tonight.
In the Great Depression, he pushes this technique to its limit, putting ungodly levels of emphasis on consonant sounds to get the audience to break.
The entire experience was fraught, perilous. Classrooms were enormous, so the teacher would have to limit your quench. How appropriate. How apt.
We're slipping into a fundamental technique for making a punchline hit in the right way, which is the presence of harsh consonant sounds. As discussed in the last video, this in part is why swear words are so effective. They're loaded with sharp consonants and usually consist of a single syllable.
Hey, fuck you!
They're the verbal equivalent of a slap in the face. But any word with a consonant sound can have a similar effect, with the right delivery. As Gulman says, words with the b, p, k sound are funnier. He also says no one knows why, but I do have a wee theory. For one, they're fun to say. It's like beatboxing or something. These words often sound less like words and more like funny noises.
Poppadoms, I really do like them, but I also think some of their appeal is just based on the pleasure you get from saying the word poppadom.
Yeah.
That's part of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's the plosive P, isn't it?
Yeah.
Poppadom.
Second, and this is more of a stretch, but bear with me. In Born Standing Up, Steve Martin talks about watching Tonight Show host Jackie Leonard, who used to punctuate jokes by slapping his stomach with his hand. One night, Martin noticed that several of his punchlines had been unintelligible, and the audience had actually laughed at nothing but the cue of his hand slap. In a similar way, the sound of a harsh, emphasized consonant can act as a trigger for a laugh line, and the closer you put these harsh consonants towards the end of a sentence, the more explosive the punchline will be.
And it's a well-constructed joke as well, I know that, because it goes na 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 na, soon to be deported East European workers, bang, like that. It's got a hard, it ends on or near a hard consonant, which is important as well. Workers, bang, like that. That's how if you look at Frankie Boyle or Jimmy Carr, all their jokes end on hard consonants, bang, and that sort of triggers.
Lee's not wrong. Frankie Boyle's delivery is reliant on consonant sounds to give his jokes their signature crunch. Take this joke from the Boyle Variety performance.
Now you're on record as saying there's nothing about the human body that could disgust you. You've thrown down the challenge, and it's a challenge that my scrotum is pleased to accept. My balls look like the two balloons you'd find hanging round a light fitting when the police kick down a dead pensioner's front door.
Now, Frankie knows how to deliver these punchlines, but his word choice does half the job for him. Listen to the punchline again.
My balls look like the two balloons you'd find hanging round a light fitting when the police kick down a dead pensioner's front door.
Of the final 8 words, 7 of them have a harsh consonant sound. The one that doesn't? The presence of the P sounds in police and pensioners, and the D sounds in down, dead, and door carry the punchline. The result is like a shotgun blast, and Frankie's ability to wrangle every bit of emphasis out of them while still delivering the joke at a pretty fast clip is what makes the joke really crackle.
Do you have the cesareans though? 2 vaginal births and it's like you're trying to fuck a dying man's handshake. Punching smoke.
Now, efficiency is a big part of this, and finding ways to make your punchlines shorter will almost always improve their impact. Listen to how Patton Oswalt reduces his syllable count to give his punchline just a little bit more spice.
At Sorghum Farms, we believe in 3 simple things: farm-to-table eating, locally sourced ingredients, and the fact that Mexicans can walk through walls when it rains. You're like, what the? Wait, what?
So on Conan, you say Mexicans can walk through walls when it rains, but then in the special you say black people.
It was, this is going to sound so lame, it was too many syllables. I had to have the 4th thing, because the 4th thing has to be very, very offensive. And one of the ways to make it is to make it as short, syllabled, and brutal as possible. And it hits harder if it's that. And because then you get the real, boom, 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 boom.
Sorghum Farms, we believe in 3 simple things. Oh, sweetie, they have a manifesto. Look at this. Farm-to-table eating. Okay. Locally sourced ingredients. Oh, okay. And the idea that black people can walk through walls when it rains. Holy shit! Oh my God, they're fucking crazy. Hang on.
Now, there's also another side to this verbal stick. Sometimes the absence of any of these harsh sounds, which the audience is subconsciously listening for, makes the joke work. This little moment from Gary Gulman perfectly subverts expectations. The audience, expecting something punchy, is instead met with Gulman's lispy spittle.
Like, you wouldn't know his name, but you know his work. Like, he wrote such timeless classics as O'Clock. Many years ago, people would say it's 9 of the clock, it's 10 of the clock. This visionary said we don't need the
Sometimes you say things and you're like, nobody is gonna like this. And then when they do like it, it's such a great feeling. Mm-hmm. It's also really, really silly. Really silly.
Another trick to keep in mind is to pair a harsh, jagged word with something soft and flaccid for that sweet, sweet contrast.
And said, behold this, for it is a carrot. And all about him knew that it was so, for it was orange, with a green top.
An example of everything we've learnt coming together is in this classic Mitch Hedberg joke.
One time I had a Jack and Coke that had a lime in it, and I saw that the lime was floating. That's good news, man. Next time I'm on a boat and it capsizes, I will reach for a lime. I'll be water skiing without a life preserver on. People will say, what the hell? And I'll pull out a lime. And a lemon too. I'm saved by the buoyancy of citrus.
Something about him saying the word lime, oh my god, it just is the best. He wrings every bit of silliness out of the word, repeating lime 4 times before ending the joke with the sharpness of the t sound in citrus. It's a perfect joke, and anyone who doesn't at least smile at Hedberg saying lamb just has no soul.
I think this is associated. What have you found?
A lime!
Has anyone in cinema history been so passionate about tossing a lime into the air?
This brings us to another disguised technique, and where we kind of go up a level: alliteration, consonants, and assonance. For those that have forgotten Year 11 English, alliteration is the repetition of consonant sounds at the start of a word, consonance is the repetition of consonant sounds anywhere in a word, and assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds anywhere in a word. I'd be remiss not to mention rhyming as well. This is a more showy technique, it's more obvious and much harder to disguise, but in the right place and with the right style of delivery, it works wonders.
One thing I was looking forward to is Harriet Tubman being on the $20 bill. Yeah, I think that would have been dope, especially for rap music, because Make It Rain would have been referred to as emancipation precipitation.
To be honest, audiences, generally speaking, love this shit. They lap it up. Something about the sounds, the musicality of it, it's a sweet little dopamine hit that goes right into the veins.
Keith went over the edge years ago. I thought, oh, he's fucked, man. Keith went over the edge. And then everyone looked down over the edge, and there's a fucking ledge, and he landed on it. There's a ledge beyond the edge. What a lucky fucking guy I am. Throw down my guitar, got a riff.
This John Mulaney routine is amazing, and the rhyme scheme totally works with his malfunctioning 1940s radio announcer / robot style of delivery. It's not subtle, but it's not meant to be, and my god is it fun to listen to.
You look, mortal, if ye be, you look, and you type what you think you see. Is it an E? Or is it a 3? That's up to ye.
This is one of those bits that's forever floating around my brain. Every now and again I'll be doing dishes or sitting on the bus, and I'll just start almost singing this bit to myself, rolling the rhymes and rhythm of it through my skull in the same way you'd sing the chorus of a song to yourself in the shower.
The passwords have passed, you've correctly guessed, but now it's time for the robot test.
Okay, where was I? Oh yeah.
I will not have you in the course of a single evening besmirching that name by behaving like a babbling, bumbling band of baboons.
Poet disguised as middle-aged vagabond Dylan Moran uses all of these all the time.
He was dead at his desk, he'd been writing prison poetry. Now, they have these Pop-Tarts pumped out by some producing machine. No, I have to know where it's from. Oh, the Catalan cave cows. Oh, I love them. The man makes that noise as he chomps his chop. Somewhere, somebody's eating a Swiss roll. They're not these people, I wonder who they are. They're not even people, they're just things to occupy thongs. Brushing crumbs of toast from her beautiful breasts with her coppery hair falling all around her shoulders. The woman has her own noise of disquiet. She's spearing her salad. It sounds like a dove having a dump. And then
This is partly why he's described as a poet-comedian, not only for the surreal images he deposits into your brain, but his instinct for blending literary techniques into his delivery.
What's it called?
The Banshees of Inisherin, I was thinking.
But there are no banshees on Inisherin.
I know, I just like the double SH sounds.
Take this example.
If you were House of Cards or whatever, Francis Underwood isn't going to turn around to you and go, "Why did you eat all the ham in the fridge, you fat fuck?"
See, you've not only got the repetition of the F sound in fridge, fat and fuck, but you've also got the assonance of the R sound in fat and ham. Very good. Let's take it up a gear.
If you need to zone out of your own life so badly, save the money. Just draw some smiley faces on cocktail sausages, cram them into Christmas decorations, and rattle them on a tray.
You can effectively divide this sentence into thirds. For the first third, you've got the consonants and alliteration of the S sound in some smiley faces, even though it's a C, the sound is the same, and sausages. Or is that sibilance? Give me a minute. Sibilance is a type of literary device for a hissing sound. S sound. Sarah's silly sister swallowed her sweet. Yeah, okay, it's sibilance. In the second third, you've got the consonants of the K sound in cram, Christmas, and decorations. And in the final third, you've got the assonance of the A sound in rattle and tray. However, if you also look at the sentence as a whole, you've got a lot of the same sounds throughout. Cocktail in the first third then ties into cram, Christmas, and decorations. Then the Ra sound in cram and decorations leads into rattle and tray. Each third of the sentence emphasizes a different sound, but they're also linked together. In this way, Moran's delivery can become insanely dense, especially for an idiot like me trying to break it down.
Because I kept telling myself, well, I'm getting a bit fat. I am. That's the way it is. But I'm interesting fat. I'm European fat. This is interesting existential detective delicatessen fat. Somebody wandering around moodily chewing on a piece of prosciutto as they wander down to the docks to see if the donut boats are in.
I mean... I'm not going to try and break down the whole thing, but I will briefly point out how Moran is going to the next level here. Moodily, chewing, and prosciutto, as he pronounces it, all have the same oo sound, even though none of them are spelt the same, so he gets assonance out of that. Then he kind of gets this mad word combo in the last bit through the alliteration of down, docks, and donut, but also the assonance of the O sound in down, docks, donut, and boats. This O sound gives the punchline a lovely kind of bouncy, bobbing quality, which makes it extremely fun to listen to. Moran portrays someone with no idea, but his phrasing can be unbelievably precise. This playfulness with language gives his comedy melody and elegance. That plays in wonderful opposition to his ramshackle appearance and demeanour.
Look, pizza. I was going to warm it and eat it later. Everybody does that. That's normal. You are looking for things to complain about. And what are these? Wasps.
The only American comic I can think of who can compete with Moran's sheer poetic wordiness is self-confessed mega nerd and everyone's favourite blue rat, Patton Oswalt. Oswalt's magnum opus, My Weakness is Strong, is one of the most literary stand-up specials ever. It is loaded with metaphors, word invention, abstract language, unorthodox phrasing, and literary techniques. Some of his punchlines are so head-scramblingly complicated, it almost beggars belief.
I'm going to end up chained to the front fender of the lead Marauder's nitro truck, with my ass hanging out, and he'll just use me as incentive for the other Marauders to go out and bring gasoline back. Like, anyone brings back a gallon of gas can butt fuck the sad boy if anyone wants to get out there and get this thing done.
This is insane, but it's so good. Anyone brings back a gallon of gas can butt fuck the sad boy. Say it out loud. Go on. Do it.
Anyone brings back a gallon of gas can butt fuck the sad boy if anyone wants to get out there and...
Doesn't that sound so good?
Doesn't it sound so bloody good?
Right, let's break this beast down. Alliteration. Brings back butt and boy all start with B. Assonance. Back, gallon, gas, can, and sad have the same sound. On in gallon, of and oi in boy emphasize the same sound. Butt and fuck have the same sound. Ba, fa. They also rhyme. Butt, fuck, and sad boy are both two words of two syllables, which give the last part of the phrase its sing-song tone. It tickles the brain in a way stand-up rarely does, letting the joke ride on the sound of the language alone.
I just like stuff that's fun to say. There are certain things that roll out of your skull and they feel good. It's like you're singing a song. And it's like a part of a song or a passage of music that you're like, I cannot wait to sling this out onto the world because I love the effect that it has when it lands. And it's just a very pleasurable feeling, and it makes you excited because you do have to do, a lot of times you have to do the same jokes every night and make them feel real. So how do you do that? You make them fun and interesting for you.
That is very well-meaning. And that is like a step away from, does this washcloth smell like chloroform to you? What do you think? Doesn't it smell like chloroform? Take you down to Uncle Touchy's naked puzzle basement.
As a viewer, you're like, he loves that he came up with that, and he loves that he gets to say it.
Oh, yeah.
And
I don't think I hide that very well. It's very clear, like, I'm so happy with his phrasing.
So,
Uncle Touchy's naked puzzle basement. You won't wear a shirt and you'll cry.
You can also use these techniques to clue the audience into your punchlines. Listen to Gary Gulman's use of alliteration here.
And you know how you can tell somebody's rich? They never call their car just the car. They always got to call it by the name of the car. My brother always does that. He's always like, yeah, the Beamer was in the shop, so I had to take the Benz. So obnoxious, so I always try to compete with him. I'm like, yeah, man, I know how you feel, man. The other day, the Civic was out of gas, so I had to take the bus.
First, it's a perfect example of parallel rhythmic structure. As we talked about in the rhythm video, the setup and the punchline have an equal number of syllables, in this case 14. But look at the repetition of B sounds. In the setup you've got Beamer and Benz, which establishes a pattern. For the punchline, Gulman then says Civic, which is where he wants to make the point of difference clear, even taking a couple beats as he waits for the audience to catch up, before he finishes the joke with, so I had to take the bus.
I'm like, yeah, man, I know how you feel, man. The other day, the Civic was out of gas, so I had to take the bus.
He returns to the alliteration in the setup, which reinforces the rhythmic structure of the joke and hammers home the punchline. Now, I can guarantee a fair number of you will be going, what a pretentious load of gobbledycrack. I don't care about these fancy techniques, and I don't care about the comedians who use them. I want to feel like a comedian is talking to me, not using all these stupid wordy tricks to make the English nerds in the audience guffaw while they adjust their suspenders. Fair enough. However, a lot of comedians are using these techniques without even realizing. Take Bill Burr, fantastic comedian, but not a comic you immediately associate as a writer. Yet, listen to the following punchline.
Am I nuts? That is a dickless dude beating the shit out of a woman. Jesus Christ. He might as well hit her with his discarded dick like a flashlight.
Burr hasn't sat down and said, this is an excellent example of alliteration and assonance, and it will reinforce the punchline.
Smashing, Jake. Terribly clever.
No, he's come up with it on the fly or thought it sounded funny and rolled with it. Same with Frankie Boyle. Remember that example?
My balls look like the two balloons you'd find hanging round a light fitting when the police kick down a dead pensioner's front door.
Is he aware that the repetition of P and D sounds are textbook use of alliteration and assonance? Probably not. And yet, it is there. It's even slipped into his heckler put-downs.
You've gone for it with the hair here, haven't you? You look like a moderately powerful Pokemon.
Why moderately? Why not fairly or reasonably? Well, say it out loud and tell me why Frankie chose it. Because in the moment when Frankie was operating on instinct, moderately just sounded better. What I'm getting at is these aren't niche tricks. They're tools available to any comedian, and which many comedians are using instinctively, despite not knowing or caring what we're talking about here. Hell, even writer comedians like Gulman are blissfully unaware of the techniques they're using.
Luckily, Oreo has built up a lot of goodwill with me over the years, so I overlook it. But they're chocolate-flavored oyster crackers. That's all.
Chocolate-flavored oyster
crackers. Yeah.
Which has alliteration, assonance, and consonants in it. Uh-huh. Is any of that on purpose? Do you think it just sounds good? And then
it
you're
just
like,
sounds good. Yeah.
For the comedians out there, learning to elevate your language in a way that feels fun and natural takes time, but they're things you'll just pick up as you develop your comedic instincts. If I had any advice, when a comedian delivers something that tickles your ear, write it down or repeat it to yourself and see what makes it so much fun to say.
I looked down and I was wearing an outfit that I purchased entirely earlier that day at a San Antonio, Texas CVS. Hook'em horns, tee, Aztec print, poly legging, open toe, shower shoe. I'd like to think that's a one-off.
The reason this video focuses so heavily on Oswalt, Moran and Gulman is because they all love and obsess over language. Moran was an obsessive play reader, forging his sense of timing without leaving his bedroom, and even confesses these days he reads only poetry.
I love listening to smart people talk. Like, I listen to A Few Good Men over and over again, falling asleep, and Aaron Sorkin in particular, and Quentin Tarantino. I love listening to people talk like nobody else talks, and yeah.
Choose your inspirations wisely, or at least consciously, and watch how they bleed into your delivery.
What English, motherfucker? Do you speak it?
These things you have to do intentionally for years will eventually become things that you do offhanded and on stage and without really thinking about it. It's a lot of instinct and just repetition.
Do you drive?
I can drive, yeah.
Okay, well, I can't drive. So if I was to ask you exactly what you're doing when you're driving, while you're driving, you might not be able to give me the fullest possible explanation because you'd be doing it.
Right, it's instinctual.
Yeah, it becomes instinctual. So it's kind of, that's where I am. It's a question of feel, you know, it's like a recipe that was your family have been making for years. You make things and then you think, oh yeah, that feels right, that doesn't, that's horrible. And you just sort of wing it, you work it out.
It's boring. I would find that boring. And anyway, I could never do it. I'm not capable of producing that kind of super refined performance because that stuff just, I can't pay attention to it.
So does that mean that when you go on stage, not everything is planned? That you
Yes, it definitely means not everything is planned.